Hey there, AP World History students. Thank you for being part of this presentation. My name is Luis Silva, and today we're looking at the river valley civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt. Please do not forget to subscribe to this channel, to share this video, and to like this video so this way we can reach a wider audience and help out more students with their AP World History class. Let's move on. Now, what will we learn today? Today we are going to analyze the origins, the structures, and the interactions of complex societies in the ancient Mediterranean world from about 3500 BCE to about 500 BCE. And in addition, we are going to describe the relationship of religion and political authority in ancient Egypt. Before we keep on going, let's review some of the concepts that we talked about in our previous video, and this is the characteristics of civilizations. First of all, a civilization must have advanced cities. It must have complex institutions such as a formal government. It must also have specialized workers such as soldiers, merchants, priests, farmers. It must also have record keeping. This is very important because civilizations must be able to write down what is going on within their cities. And civilizations must also have advanced technology. All of these characteristics are primarily part of Mesopotamia and Egypt. Let's move on. The discovery of farming during the Neolithic Revolution allowed nomadic people to settle into civilizations. Let's look at some of the people of the world and how they evolved. First of all, beginning about 2 million BC, a group of people known as hunting and gathering bands became responsible for the invention of tools, mastery of fire, development of language, and the creation of art. Beginning about 8000 BC, we had this massive growth of villages, and this group of people is responsible for a breakthrough in farming technology, the development of agriculture, domestication of animals, and food surplus. And lastly, the rise of cities beginning about 3000 BC. This group of people was responsible for specialized workers, record keeping, complex institutions, and advanced technology. So this is where we are. This is where we get to Mesopotamia and Egypt. The world's first civilizations all began in river valleys. And in this case, we have 4 different civilizations. We have the Chinese civilization, which you see to your right. We have the Mesopotamian civilization, which is in the Middle East. We also have the ancient Egyptian civilization, which is by the Mediterranean Sea to your left. And we also have the Indus Valley civilization, which is by the Arabian Sea, as you can see in the middle of the map. The first civilization began in an area known as Mesopotamia. This area is very important and is home to modern-day countries of Iraq, East Turkey, Syria, as well as parts of Israel. Very important area in the Middle East, and even today, it's one of the most important areas in the world, and many countries are actually involved in this area. Mesopotamia means land between the rivers and is often called the Fertile Crescent, or as the cradle of civilization. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers flooded once per year, leaving behind fertile soil ideal for farming. Please remember that in order to establish a civilization, in order to establish cities, there must be water. And in this case, all of the cities that you see here to your right hand side in the purple area were near water, and this made it possible for them to do all of the farming, This made it possible for them to grow their cities and become powerful. The first civilization developed in the Fertile Crescent in an area known as Sumer. You see there on the right hand side, the purple area. This was an area where humans evolved. Human civilizations were able to grow in unprecedented ways. But surrounding desert and the lack of natural barriers attracted outsiders to Mesopotamia and made the Sumerians in a way a little weak because they were exposed to different attacks by enemies. So in order to protect the cities, the Sumerians had to build walls to protect their cities. In this picture that you have here to the right hand side, it's a clear example of how this particular city, the Sumerian city-state, were protected by high walls. At the city center was a temple called a ziggurat. Remember that religion was very important in the civilizations because religions brought people together. Religion had a code that people lived by. The Sumerians, very important civilization, also had specialized workers. At the top of society were priests, like we were mentioning before. Religion played and still plays a significant role in our societies. So at the top of society, you had the priests, and then you had the kings. In the middle, you had skilled workers. In this case, skilled workers included like the merchants, the businessmen. And way at the bottom of this particular civilization, you had common people, in this case, farmers. On top of that, you also had slaves. Religion, again, played a significant role, and the Sumerians and Babylonians were polytheistic. What do we mean by polytheistic? Well, it literally means that they had many gods. As you can see here from the picture that you have in front of you, the genealogy of Mesopotamian gods. I'm not going to go over them because they're just too many. You're more than welcome to pause this video so you can see how the gods evolved in both Sumerian city-states as well as the Babylonians. Very important concept of religion that dominated society. Now, in terms of the Hebrews in Palestine were the first monotheistic faith in history, Judaism. What do we mean by monotheistic? Well, we mean that they believed only in one God versus the Sumerians, versus the Babylonians who had many gods. In this case, for the Hebrews, the holy book of Judaism is the Torah, which God gave Moses, the 10 Commandments, which served as moral laws. And here we have a primary document of the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are the 10 orders or laws given by God to Moses in Mount Sinai. These orders were to serve as the basis for Jewish law. You're more than welcome to pause this video again so you can read the 10 Commandments. If you practice like Christianity, you're more than welcome to look at your Bible, and you're gonna see this in the Old Testament, the 10 Commandments that God gave to Moses. In terms of government, Babylonian king Hammurabi created the first legal code. So you see that it's very important to have a government, and a government that creates laws. And in this case, in order to keep civilizations, people, from doing harm to other people, laws had to be created and people had to obey them. In this case, Hammurabi's code had 282 laws based on justice and also retaliation. For example, an eye for an eye. The code had different punishments for the various levels of society. By the way, here are some of the laws that were written, in this case, by the Babylonian king Hammurabi. You're more than welcome to pause this video so you can see this is a lasting contribution that has impacted the ancient world as well as our world today. In terms of writings, in this case, Sumerians made the world's first writing called cuneiform. But cuneiform writing was very complicated. And in this case, the Phoenicians were able to simplify cuneiform writing to a 22-letter alphabet. The Phoenician merchants were able to spread the alphabet throughout the Mediterranean world. The Phoenicians were merchants, please remember that. And they went and sold their merchandise everywhere in the Middle East, and in this case, the Mediterranean world. And they were able to spread this alphabet, 22-letter alphabet, to that part of the world. The alphabet influenced the Greeks, which became very important later on, the Latin, as well as the English. As you can see here to the left hand side, you have the alphabets, ancient versus modern. And in this case, the ancients, we're looking at the Phoenicians, we're looking at the Greeks, and we're also looking at English. You see how this cuneiform writing was transformed into a 22-letter alphabet by the Phoenicians. From then it went to the Greeks, and from the Greeks it went to the English. So this is how writing evolved, and this is a very important lasting contribution. In terms of technology, Sumerians were able to invent many things, and those inventions included the wheel, sail, as well as bronze metalwork. So please remember all of this information, take notes, as this will help you be successful when you are taking your AP World exam. Now let's move on to the second civilization and their lasting contributions. In this case, the ancient Egyptians. Egypt began along the Nile River in North Africa. Here's a map to your right hand side which shows you how Egypt is divided, and you basically see that the Nile River was the life of Egypt. In most of the cities, most of the places that evolved were right next to the Nile River. Egypt was bordered on both sides by desert, which isolated and protected Egyptians from outsiders. Very important, because unlike the Sumerians, unlike the Babylonians, they had to build walls in order to protect their cities. In this case, you had the Egyptians that were isolated basically because they had desert on both sides. The Nile River's annual floods were very predictable and also provided fertile soil, good soil, soil that could be used to farm, and this obviously brought surplus of food to the Egyptian civilization, and they were able obviously to continue to evolve and also grow. To the right hand side, you have an image of the Nile River and how it worked basically. The Nile flooded so predictably that the Egyptians designed their calendar around it. And you also have here, like, from the month of January all the way to the month of December, and you see how the Nile was flooding. You see how the Nile was making it possible for Egyptians to survive and to know when they had to farm and when they had to stop farming. Let's move on. Now, some of the lasting contributions by the Egyptians. The Egyptians had advanced cities. Cities developed along the Nile River in Upper Egypt as well as Lower Egypt. If you see that the map to the right, you see that Upper Egypt is way at the bottom, right hand side of the map, and you see that Lower Egypt is heading north near the Mediterranean Sea. Now, the Egyptians also had specialized workers. Very important. As you can see, all of these civilizations, all of these groups of people, first of all, were near waterways, near rivers, and they also had specialized workers. In this case, for the Egyptians, way at the bottom of this pyramid, you have unskilled workers. On top of the unskilled workers, you had farmers. And on top, you also had traders, artisans, shopkeepers, as well as scribes. And on top of them, you had priests and nobles. And way, way at the top of the pyramid, you had the almighty Pharaoh. Obviously, the Pharaoh is the government, and in this case, pharaohs ruled Egypt as king gods. So they were deeply respected because, again, look at the title. They were king gods, and all Egyptians were responsible, were told that they had to obey them. And obviously, people believe that the pharaohs could control nature. Let's move on. In terms of government, Egyptians constructed pyramids and elaborate tombs for the pharaohs. As you see here from the image, these pyramids are like modern day. They are there as a testament of how great this civilization was. And let's move on to religion. Again, let's make the parallels. All civilizations had religion. Egyptians were polytheistic. They believed in many gods, and they believed that gods control all aspects of life. You have at the bottom, you have a list of gods. You're more than welcome to Google search and see what each god was responsible for doing. In terms of writings, Egyptian hieroglyphics was both pictogram, as you can see here, there are pictures, and phonetic alphabet. They also had letters, and you see there how their writing was able to make it possible for everybody to communicate and bring the civilization to be one of the most dynamic civilizations and contributed so much to world cultures and history. Here we have hieroglyphics which were translated using the Rosetta Stone. Very important. I mean, if you look at that rock with or the tablet with all of this writing, you needed a way to interpret. You needed a way to translate what was written, and the Rosetta Stone was used to translate this particular Egyptian writings. In terms of technology, the Egyptians included a 365-day calendar. On top of that 365-day calendar, they also had geometry. For those of you that do not love geometry, well, guess what? It's an old math, and we still practice it today because it's extremely important in terms of human development. On top of that, Egyptians had astronomy. As you can see there, astronomy is very important. And also, Egyptians had pyramids, built pyramids. As you can see the picture, very impressive structures that were or are a legacy of the Egyptian or the ancient Egyptian world. We have come to the end of this presentation. Please do not forget to subscribe, do not forget to like this video, and do not forget to share this video. I will see you in the next presentation.